Good morning, team. A few of you requested I do a little race debrief, so I thought a video would be the best way to walk through things. So thank you so much for all your support and letting me catch up a little bit this week from being away. So really appreciate all the cheers and the support and understanding. So yeah, really awesome race. Something maybe some of you should consider one day that you might want to do. It's something you have to sign up pretty early, just like Ironmans, and get accepted and apply all that. So if it's something you're interested in, take a peek at that site, that Lotaja website that I posted, and maybe it's something you'd like to do one day. So awesome event, really well organized, really, really great as far as, atmosphere and all of that stuff. So, training going in was, I'll try and keep it sort of a little bit brief, and then if you want to hear a little bit more, I can elaborate. But, as I try and practice what I preach, I roll a pretty consistent schedule that's nothing, too crazy, but really consistent most of the time. And breaks happen naturally through travel and life and things like that. As far as, I had a little bit of downtime from being sick. I had a little bit of downtime when I was away coaching at the training center. But for the most part, I run a pretty just consistent schedule with different little training blocks that roll through different energy systems. Very, I practice what I preach and just stay super consistent. And then I put together I joke all the time about a panic training plan, but that's, if you all know me very well, I love to joke around and I have a pretty sarcastic sense of humor, but I put together a 5-week plan backwards from the race when I got home from Girona. And 2 of the weeks were pretty aggressive in terms of mileage. And, I talked about this on the podcast and stuff like that, so you can refer to that, and I won't get into it too deep, but, really, really focused specifically on what I was training for in the event. Nothing I couldn't recover from, but, pretty challenging. So, I can walk you through just very basics of, put together a 400-mile week and then a 440-mile week and then a little over 300, and then started to bring it down and increase the intensity. So, and then a real little taper in. So that's just the general overview. Anyway, so enough about the training. The race itself, started out surprisingly aggressive. If I can take a screenshot of my power profile for you guys, but really in the first 30, 40 miles, even all the way to the base of the first climb, so the first 50, 60 miles, it was really aggressive. A few of the girls were trying to create a break from the main pack. There was about 70 of us that started, and women all started together. And we, they were really aggressively 300, 400 attacks, whether you were, I didn't go with most of those attacks thinking this is kind of a ridiculous way to start a 200-mile day. It felt like a crit, but I ended up being the one that was responsible for dragging most of the attacks back. So I ended up doing quite a lot of work early on. And unfortunately, I hit a pothole and launched a water bottle. And so now, and the first feed wasn't until 76 miles. And so I had 1 water bottle for the whole first 76 miles, which I don't recommend. But, fortunately, I've been doing this a really long time. I come from a really hot climate. I am a little bit of a camel. So I kind of, even though I knew I was going to get behind and it wasn't ideal, I could back myself and knew how to troubleshoot soon as I could. So in terms of making sure with salt and fluids once I had access to it and how to handle that. So pretty aggressive start all the way out to the flat. I'll share that file maybe as well if people are interested. And then I knew that, that sort of split up the race from that aspect. Now we were down to about 20, 30 gals that were going to be the more aggressive racers of the day. We hit the base of the first climb and it was very hard. It broke up the climb a little bit more. I was super happy I could climb with the girls. That was my biggest worry. I knew if I could get over the climbs with the strongest women that I would have a shot at this race, but that was a concern of mine. I'm typically not a great climber compared to other pro women at this stage. But I was able to do that. And so I was pretty happy about that. I just really dug in, didn't do any, just followed wheels, didn't do anything heroic, just basically dug in and let them set the pace, and, you know, really committed to, no matter how hard it was, staying with them absolutely at all costs over that climb, that first climb. And that first climb was pretty long. I think it was like about 45 minutes, so pretty significant climb. The descents, I'm always the fastest descender in those groups, so that was no worries. I got a little bit of a break. Then, you know, by that time we were broken down to about 10 of us. Maybe there's 10 or 12 of us. We got rid of a lot of women over that first climb. And then, you know, it was rolling turns, keeping the speed high, learning to work together, sort of, you know, taking a look around, who was there, who was going to do what on the flats until we hit the next climb. And the next two climbs, one of them, the very final one, was the QOM climb, which I knew was going to be aggressive. And I knew I absolutely had to do everything it took to stay with the top girls if I wanted to have a chance at this. And again, I surprised myself. I was able to do that. I'm a little bit of a racer, so sometimes, and we can dive into that another time of what that looks like, but I'm able to pull out in races a little bit more than I can in training. And we talk a lot about that, being performers under pressure, and you know, when to perform and when it counts. So it got really, really hard on the climb, and it's absolutely staying committed and digging into that without going over the edge. You know, you can blow yourself up, and then you're not any good to yourself. So, you know, reading the race and reading how hard they're going, staying in contact, but without blowing yourself up, that's really important. And I was able to do that with the QOM and stay with that group. We shed a couple more girls, and now it was down to 8 of us. And that's when we looked around and said, this is the race. This is the 8 of us that are going to make it to the finish line together. A little bit later on the race, one of the gals cramped up pretty badly, and she dropped off, so now it was down to 7 of us. And that whole last stretch of the race, you know, I'm kind of a sprinter, so I was putting tickets on myself as far as the sprint. I thought, okay, well, you know, and I could tell a couple of the other gals were probably sprinters as well. So I was starting to think about, like, how much energy do I have left? I don't want to cramp up. You know, how is this sprint going to play out? Most of them had done it several times before. One of the gals there had done it 7 times. I was the only one there that it was my first time, so I didn't know the finish. It's not something you can check out the days before. So I didn't know what the stretch looked like. I didn't know that, you know, what the finish chute looked like. So in hindsight, I kind of screwed up the sprint a little bit. I had lots of energy at the end for racing for 200 miles. And it came down to a tactical thing. I'm a really good high speed sprinter, so winding the speed up really high and then absolutely going for it, standing up and sprinting. A low speed sprint where it's super slow and everyone's looking over their shoulder, and then they jump out of the saddle with max power and up to speed, you know, in the last 200 meters. I'm not as good at that. So I don't know why. I don't know if my brain was foggy or what, but at 1K to go, I really should have just wound it up super fast, as fast as I could possibly go. And then with 200 meters to go, just stood up and sprint. And maybe one of the gals would have come over the top of my wheel at the end because they're in the draft. And maybe I could have set the speed and sprinted fast enough that no one would have came over the top of me. But for some reason, I was sitting about 4th wheel. It slowed right down, and I was like, uh-oh. And as it slowed right down, and about, you know, within the last 150, 200 meters, the young gal, she just jumped out to the left and put out a max sprint, and everyone reacted, and I didn't have that kind of jump there at the end. Not because of the duration or anything like that. It's just that's actually just really not a strength of mine. And so I ended up 3rd pro women, 5th in the group. So it's masters. It depends on your licensing. So I still have a professional license for bike racing, and I put myself in that category, but all women started together. And some of the gals race, even though they're at pro level, they might race the masters category because they're trying to win that category. So they race their age group and their category. So I was super happy I had a good day for me. I was mostly happy I could get over the climbs with those gals. You know, you got to get over the climbs to be in the race at the end. And you got to look after yourself all day to put yourself in a position to be good in the end. And so I was happy I was able to do that. I managed the losing the water bottle. Nutrition was great. Of course, a lot of experience in staying with that. And then tactically, I read the race really well. I made important moves, when I needed to. I didn't react to things that didn't matter, and worked hard when I needed to, dug deep. I got all of it's funny, you have your phone in your pocket for this race, and my Garmin, my text messages come up on my Garmin, and right at the base of one of those climbs, I think it might have been, it's like 40 miles to go or something, I could see you all saying on the WhatsApp, cheering me on, and that actually gave me some great motivation. I had also, some of your efforts in mind, the good Ironmans and half Ironmans and hard efforts that you're putting out. Eddie just did the extreme, and he had said to me the day before, right when you think you have nothing left to give, dig a little deeper, you've got more. There's something in that. And I really thought about that in the climbs when I was hanging on to those climbers' little wheels. So, Christina, I thought about your 15 hours of swimming. I thought she swam for 15 hours, 10 hours of riding is nothing. I could list, so many of your inspirational achievements and efforts in training and racing. So the list is too long to even go there, but those were right at the front of my mind, and you all inspire me for sure. So thanks for the support. I know this is a long video. If you're still watching, kudos to you. And yeah, we can dive into more if we want to when we do the team Zoom. And yeah, really appreciate your support. Cheers.